Hey everyone. So today we're going to talk about Kelly, the new White House press secretary. I think a couple things. One, whenever she goes off on people, I say go off, but whenever she pulls out her little binder and starts to read all of the receipts that she's brought to the conversation, she's doing something that is important in that particular moment because you have to understand a couple of things. One, there are questions that can be asked in such a way that no matter how you answer them, you're gonna come out on the other side looking like looking poorly. The other thing you have to consider is the journalist asking the question. Has that journalist developed a full story? Have they that person that's asking any person the question, and Kelly in this particular case, have they gone and asked the other side of that question to the other party? Usually there's two sides to almost every coin, and for to get a full picture of something of what actually is happening, you need to understand both sides. Um, and then lastly, like what's the full story? So to go talk about the question, you really have to understand when somebody is not there's a general curiosity that can be asked. Hey, what is going on with X or what's going on with Y? But there's also like, hey, if X is true, why haven't you done this about it? So the whole question stem has changed, and therefore the way the person is to respond to that question is completely changed. It's not a fact-based question. It's more of like, okay, how are you thinking, and why are you doing what you're doing? And you can make those questions, you can shape those questions in such a way that it makes the answer look so bad that they can't ever. People have seen this, and it's what's frustrating about politicians to a lot of people. They don't answer the question. The, there is uh, there is a technique that you can skirt questions and then say what you want. But in a lot of cases, and what Kelly I think is doing a great job of is she's saying, listen, here's our position, but I want to know, have you asked this position? Let's go back and at least get the full story. She brings in the some context to every question, so it's not this little gotcha moment. And that's what I think she's doing a really good job of. And that's one thing I haven't really seen before. They're very concise. They're very. She hits the point. She brings some some contextualization to a question any particular journalist may add. And so another thing that to add on to that. So point number two is, has the journalist that's asked the question done the homework on the other side? It could be that they haven't, and they're just starting out their investigation. Say, hey, I was curious about this. What is the administration doing here? I plan on following up. That would be a more appropriate way to ask questions, especially given the distrust that the current administration has with the journalists. You can't just assume that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. You can't just assume that. And when they ask a question, I think the more proper assumption would be they're trying to get you, they're trying to trip you up. They're not trying to find the truth and ferret the truth. They're actually trying to just paint you as this person that thinks this way. And so whenever you're reading a journalist, let's say there's a particular piece that comes out and the White House administration is bad for these reasons or is doing this, you need to at least try to find if that journalist or even at least is that newspaper publishing the other side of that story in order to balance what they're trying to say and what they're trying to get you to think. And that's where the third point comes in is, what's the full story? It's difficult these days to get the full story because what will happen is the Heroes Act is a great example. The Heroes Act has come out and most people keying in on the fact that it's going to be this second stimulus. There's going to be another check sent out. That's true, that is in there, but there's a lot of other information in there that also is going along with that second stimulus check. And this is where it becomes cumbersome on us as the people to understand what's actually happening and to stay informed. And so for you as a consumer or as a person who's out in the world trying to be informed on how these things impact your life, your kids, your family, your communities, you it's frustrating. But at the same time, the world is so complex at this point that you really can't just take one particular piece of news and say, okay, this is the way the world is these days. That's where the news used to be fact-based, trustworthy. The minute somebody said, and this gets into this whole idea of catharsis and reconciliation. If you if you abuse someone's trust, what is your responsibility to that person in the future? I think you can re-earn trust. I think there's ways to go about it, but to say something, to say some inflammatory comment about someone and then never address that when it comes back or they challenge you on it, it makes you look so bad from a person of making the accusation that you've really lost credibility, and to a point now where people don't even know what to think and or how to think about a particular given fact. If somebody says, or a particularly given report, if somebody says Trump has said this, it's like, well, did he say that, or was that sentence taken so far out of context that you're making that mean something else? That question is in people's mind now, and that becomes a slippery slope, because how do you trust anything that's reported? You almost have to go investigate it for yourself, which becomes very difficult because not everybody can be everybody, so on and so forth. So I think she's doing a great job. Curious to see what you guys think, at least for what I've seen of her. Drop me a comment below. See ya.